From the KELOLAND Digital Desk, I'm meteorologist Scott Mundt. This is Weather or Not for Tuesday, January 13th. Coming up on today's show, we've got a lot to talk about. Windy conditions, not only for today, but I think late this week. That is something that we will have to pay close attention to as we do get into the later part of this week. That's Thursday into Friday, even Saturday, because temperatures will fall as we go through the day on Friday. Help bring in cold air with these north winds. Wind chill values could easily fall to the minus teens and minus 20s. That's starting to show up on some of the computer model runs. Along with it, we have snow on Friday. Right now, it looks like very light snow. It showed you some of the model runs yesterday. We'll try to go through that again for today of how much snow to expect. And we'll talk more about our pattern, too. It looks to be a little more active over the next couple of weeks as we continue through the month of January. Well, what's going on for today? We could see rain showers today as temperatures this morning well above average. 40s, even have some 50s out there this morning, eventually leading to this futurecast showing these rain showers in western, central, and south central South Dakota. I think eastern KELOLAND will stay dry. The rainfall amounts may approach a tenth of an inch or more for some. Many will stay less than a tenth of an inch, and you see how these run through the area. A lot of this will be gone by the evening. This cold front to the north will eventually come through. Colder air working in behind this. If there's any moisture still lingering, we could squeeze out some flurries, maybe that hit a light snow. Moisture is very, very limited, so anything that falls, hits the ground, will remain very light, just enough for a mention. Thursday, I would say mostly dry. We'll have to watch for increasing chances for snow, maybe Thursday evening and Thursday night. And more about that in a bit. Our winds for today, we've already had the winds increase during the overnight, coming in from the west, 10 to 20. We've had some wind gusts into that mid-20 to near 30-mile-per-hour range during the morning. And look what happens as we continue through the morning. Those are wind gusts in that 30 to 40-mile-per-hour range. And more or less, that covers the whole area. Western South Dakota, the winds will be stronger. And western KELOLAND, we're also looking at, some of these wind gusts to approach 60 miles per hour. You see that trying to set up maybe for Custer down toward Hot Springs. Could see a couple of those stronger wind gusts into that location. We have wind advisories that are in effect across western South Dakota. By the midday hour, still looking at these wind gusts in the 30 to near 40-mile-per-hour range. Stronger, over 40, over 50 across the hills of western South Dakota. And then as we do get into maybe the late evening hours and overnight, that's when these winds are expected to slowly die down. So here's a look at that wind advisory. This is for today. I know the marquee says tomorrow, but this is for today, showing that we could have those wind gusts of 50 miles per hour or more across western South Dakota. And there's a look at today's forecast, 40s and 50s, that strong northwest wind. The chances for precip are highest, I would say, in central and south central South Dakota, anywhere from 50 as high as, say, 70% chance to see that for central and south central KELOLAND. Much, if not all, of eastern South Dakota will end up staying dry. Much colder tonight. Teens and 20s for lows. In the east, we'll say near 30 in central and western South Dakota. Still at north winds tonight, 15 to 25, but lighter wind speeds for tomorrow. Eastern KELOLAND, 5 to 15 miles per hour. It will be a colder day. Highs in the 20s to near 30 degrees. And then we have temperatures in the 30s and 40s for central South Dakota and still hitting the middle 40s in western KELOLAND. Coming up after the break, we'll talk about our strong wind. I mentioned the wind for today, but we'll also look at these wind speeds expected as we get closer to this coming weekend. Stay with us. You're watching Weather or Not. Well, you know it can't be good when I skip the music and I go right to the wind sound effect. We'll have wind today, and we'll have wind come back Thursday, Friday after getting a break from that wind for tomorrow. In fact, let's go ahead and show you our expected wind gusts, and then we'll go through a couple of other things for you too. Kind of behind the scenes, what we like to look at with our wind momentum transfer. It's something that Brian Karstens really likes to look at, and I looked at this yesterday, showed it to you yesterday, and we'll run through that again for today. In fact, I'm getting that kind of ready behind the scenes at the moment. But you can see as we do get into tomorrow, our winds will slowly try to die down. And then that trend continues right into the afternoon. Now, by the time we do get into Thursday, we'll come back with this northwest wind increasing in western South Dakota. Notice those wind gusts in western KELOLAND. I would say easily 50 miles per hour. That may not do it justice. As we get into the later part of the evening and overnight, we could see very strong winds across western KELOLAND. In fact, I went ahead and just circled that whole area, suggesting that winds may gust 60 to 80 miles per hour. And that is something that we'll talk about with a website that I'm still bringing up here, kind of behind the scenes. Now, it is showing wind gusts of 40 miles per hour in central and eastern KELOLAND. That is something that will probably have, I would say, the gusts at least to that 40 mile per hour range. We could easily get some of those wind gusts of 50 miles per hour or more. And then even during the later part of the afternoon, still looking at these strong winds, especially those areas in brown, in western, maybe south central South Dakota. Those could be those wind gusts getting close to that 50 or 60 mile per hour range. So this is the website that I showed yesterday, and this is one that we've gone to when we've had these strong wind events move through the area. So what we're looking at is Rapid City, and we're looking at the wind speed forecast with the gusts coming in for the momentum transfer. So we have higher winds in the upper layers of the atmosphere, and then they eventually try to transition down to the surface. Now, you can see here as we go into the afternoon and evening, we have a couple of these wind gusts here across western South Dakota trying to get over 50 to near 60 miles per hour. And we do have that wind advisory in place across western KELOLAND due to these strong winds. And then you notice we do get a break from the wind, but look how it comes back for Thursday night and Friday. It's showing wind speeds here trying to get over 80 miles per hour. That may happen maybe by Friday morning. So we'll continue to follow this information as it comes in because, once again, it's showing very strong winds across western South Dakota. Let me bring in Sioux Falls. I just need to change the identifier to Sioux Falls, hit the regenerate button, and oh, look at that. Oh, you know why? Because I mistyped FSD. That's the identifier for Sioux Falls. Regenerate, and here it is. So let's go ahead and go down to momentum transfer here. This is interesting for later this evening. It wants to bring in this wind gust between 50 to 55 miles per hour, right where I have that cursor. That is during the evening hours, and I have another graphic to hopefully better illustrate that with some of the information I looked at earlier. After that, we get into tomorrow. Those winds do die down as we go through the day tomorrow. The winds die down. Then they come back up, okay? This is going into Thursday evening. We have that peak gust there over 40. And then for maybe Friday morning, we could see these wind gusts approach 50 miles per hour or more. Again, for your Friday, we can see those strong winds return. So that's a look at Sioux Falls. Let me go ahead and bring in Aberdeen. And again, I'll have a graphic that kind of goes over everything I'm showing here. But just to show you Aberdeen, here again is a look at our winds. Our gusts today, maybe around 35 miles per hour later this evening. But here's what I'm more interested in. This is Thursday evening going into Friday morning. We could see wind gusts around 60 miles per hour. It wants to maybe push it over 65 during the evening hours on Thursday. So that is showing up into not only southeastern KELOLAND, but into northeastern South Dakota. Now, these winds are not as strong as what I just showed you for western KELOLAND during that time, but they're still impressive, getting these wind gusts 50 to 60 miles per hour. And finally, here in central South Dakota, this is Pierre. Even today, it has a wind gust between 50 and 55. That's where the cursor is now. And then notice how it does jump between 60, touching 70. That's for Friday morning. Looks like it wants to do that sometime during the morning hours on Friday. Now, that may be a little bit different than the information I'm just about to show you that I looked at maybe a couple of hours ago, and I put together a graphic on it. But more or less, it's going through what I just showed you with the website, able to bring in what the information is showing. So let's go ahead and go over to our weather graphics machine. Now, our sustained winds for today, I have that listed: Sioux Falls, Aberdeen, Pierre, Rapid City, anywhere from 20 to 30 are sustained winds. So we have our strongest winds in the western South Dakota. More or less, I'm going off that graphic from earlier this morning. And then for later in the day, Thursday through Friday, those sustained winds a little higher for some locations in central and western South Dakota. So those winds will end up being a little bit stronger as we get into Thursday and Friday. Let me hit the button. Here's a look at our wind gusts, okay, for today. We'll see if we get around 50 miles per hour, maybe happening late in the afternoon, early evening, around 5 o'clock. I tried to put that time frame in there, too, with our strong winds for today. The timing I left off for Thursday evening through Friday, though, as I just showed you, some of that is trying to point to Friday morning with some of those strong winds. So, again, the top layer there, those are the sustained winds for today, Thursday into Friday. The wind gusts there on the bottom. Wind gusts today will follow those 50 to 60 miles per hour in western South Dakota, and some of those stronger winds may come in around 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Of course, later in the day for central and eastern KELOLAND, and then we'll watch Thursday and Friday because those wind gusts in the western South Dakota, 70, 80 miles per hour, trying to show up in Rapid City. Eastern KELOLAND could also see some wind gusts between 50, 60 miles per hour, maybe getting as high as 65 in Aberdeen, 70 for Pierre. So we'll follow what the information shows us over the next couple of days. And I think tomorrow should be joined by meteorologist Brian Karstens for tomorrow as well. And that's a story that I did for today, talking about our warm temperatures so far this month. But that's about to change. And part of that change will come Friday with falling temperatures and falling snow. I'll have more details coming up after the break. Welcome back to Whether or Not. Friday. Friday will end up being an interesting day. Just because we're looking at some big changes coming. Possibility for snow. Snow's in our forecast for Friday. A lot of it trying to fall across eastern South Dakota, Minnesota, northwestern Iowa. Much colder, too. Friday could end up being one of those days where we have falling temperatures during the day. So, when you look at the forecast, it shows a high upper 20s, lower 30s. That's probably early in the day, and then those temperatures are expected to fall as we'll have strong winds. Now, here's a look at what's expected for Friday. And it's showing our snow chances, not only in central, eastern KELOLAND, but across western South Dakota. And I say that because, of course, the hills can use some snow, and they could see some accumulating snows by the time we do get into Friday. But we're also following very strong wind. In fact, it's popping at 60-mile-per-hour wind gust in Rapid City already for Friday. And that's something we just talked about last segment with the strong wind that's coming, not only for today, but, again, Thursday into Friday. So keep in mind, too, as we do have snow in the forecast, strong winds, if you have any travel plans that may take you, say, into Minnesota, the Minneapolis area, pay attention to that weather come Friday because a lot of the snow, the accumulating snow, is trying to set up to our east. And, not to say that we can't see accumulating snow in eastern KELOLAND because we can, though we do think that the amounts will end up being a little bit lighter. And those amounts on the computer models are coming up here in just a bit. But you can see as we get into the midday hour, still a chance at these snow showers as these winds continue. And even during the afternoon, notice central western South Dakota still with our strong winds. I showed you information that we could see Wind gusts on occasion that, of course, will be stronger than these numbers. So with the snow and the wind, yeah, we could run into some travel issues on Friday. Now, this is a snowfall forecast that takes us all the way into Sunday morning. So it's lumping, 4 or 5 days worth of whatever may fall. And the European models trying to put a 2 to 4 inch range for snow, Marshall, Watertown, maybe areas to the north and Ortonville and Sisseton. Otherwise, I think a lot of these amounts will stay an inch or less, and it's trying to show that Sioux Falls, I know it gives that range of 1 to 2, Mitchell, Huron, and Aberdeen. I would just say that it's probably around an inch. So that's a look at the European model. One of the runs of the American model, far less, that shows many locations, a lot of these locations, less than an inch in eastern and even northeastern South Dakota. The only exceptions are Marshall and Sisseton coming in around 1 to 2 inches. And another look at the American model run here, more or less the same thing. A lot of these locations coming in at less than an inch. It gives that isolated area into extreme northeastern South Dakota around an inch or two in Sisseton. So from what I just showed you with these 3 runs of these longer range computer models is just an idea of what may fall for snowfall amounts. Now, let's go ahead and bring in that probability map. This is something that we like to show a lot during KELOLAND this morning. And to get around an inch of snowfall, this will take us through the day on Saturday. The probability showing up Watertown, Marshall, they're both coming in at 87% chance to see at least an inch of snowfall. And that is extended to the north and to the east of those areas, where those areas highlighted in red. And then those numbers quickly taper down to maybe a 20% chance for around an inch of snow in Sioux Falls, a little more than that in Huron, 5% in central South Dakota, 1% in Rapid City. But the hills, there's a bullseye out there for the hills of western South Dakota where they can see at least an inch of snowfall. Okay, let's take it to 3 inches. What happens then? Well, a lot of it goes away. So, suggesting that the amounts may approach an inch, some spots maybe a little bit more. The areas that can get a little bit more, those are showing up across northeastern South Dakota, western Minnesota. Showed you that with those computer model runs of suggesting, the range going anywhere from an inch or two for those locations to 2 to 4 inches into those locations. So that's, I think this has a pretty good handle on that too. So the evidence is there that we can see snowfall amounts around an inch. Some spots will get a little bit more than that. The way it looks right now, the areas that can get a little more than that are extreme eastern, northeastern South Dakota, and into western Minnesota. So there's another closer look at the probability of our accumulating snows as we do get into Friday. And again, a lot of that falling, I would say, Thursday into Friday. We'll talk about our weather pattern coming up as temperatures are expected to turn much colder. And you'll feel that even for this coming weekend. We may see those wind chills that can fall to the minus teens and minus 20s on Saturday. We'll have more details on that coming up after the break. You're watching Weather or Not. Welcome back to Whether or Not. The pattern ahead. We've been advertising this. Brian and I have been advertising this. Sooner or later, that temperatures will fall. We'll get a taste of that for this weekend as our numbers may struggle to get out of the single digits for highs in eastern and northeastern South Dakota. Right now, we do have teens for highs on Saturday across eastern South Dakota, western Minnesota. But we could get a couple of areas that may not even get out of the single digits across northeastern KELOLAND. So things are changing. Let's go ahead and show you some of those changes. In fact, we'll have a series of systems that run in here from the northwest. Now, this first one that's coming through, Yeah, we'll have high pressure come in for tomorrow. That will help decrease our winds. Not looking at strong winds for tomorrow, but that quickly changes with this next one. And, I think that that's been the theme. Whenever these systems move through and they bring in the colder air or the much colder air, they've had a lot of wind with them too. The dynamics of the atmosphere just work that way to bring in very strong winds when you're talking the big difference in this temperature. And we start to see that for this weekend. On Saturday, high pressure working in behind low pressure that brings in the snow and the rain as temperatures do fall during the day on Friday. Saturday, I mentioned just plain cold in the east. It will be warmer in the west. Temperatures may reach the 40s in western KELOLAND, while we're stuck with single digits and teens in the east and northeast. Reinforcing shot of some cold air as we get into early next week, especially across eastern KELOLAND. Another weak disturbance will try to race through by midweek of next week, but this is what I'm really interested in, is that last week of the month, how this starts or how this actually sets up as we are looking at much colder air that will try to move through as we do get into that last week of the month. And that's what this is showing. In fact, I had this. I want to go ahead and show you this. Notice on the European run here how the numbers are just tanking to highs in the single digits for 3 days here. That's what, January 25th, 26th, 27th. So that's during the last week of the month, how those highs have just collapsed to the single digits this is Sioux Falls. Okay, there's our 50 for today, and then notice how we have this steady decline, it seems. Sure, we, have a valley there at 12 and 9. There's that 12 Saturday, that cold air I talked about, that reinforcing shot of cold on Monday. And then it's out here, the last couple of days here in our forecast graphic, showing those highs only in the single digits. And that's for Sioux Falls. Let's go ahead and show you what Aberdeen is showing as I go ahead and change the identifier. Maybe not as dramatic, but you are seeing those temperatures still in the single digits and teens in that extended forecast that takes us into that last week of the month. So yes, we do have some changes on the way. Does it come with snow? Of course, that's, still yet to be determined. We're still trying to figure out what's going on with our chances for snow with this system coming through on Friday, as it looks like the best chance for that will end up being parts of eastern South Dakota. And then as we do make our way into the rest of the weekend, looks like it'll just be plain cold as we do get into Saturday. Oh, keep in mind those wind chills too. Should mention that. Running out of time here, but those wind chills, by the time we do get into Saturday, in the minus teens and minus 20s across eastern KELOLAND. I'll end it there. Thank you for watching. Love it.